Story number 1. Whispers of the Dahlia. Winter in Los Angeles is a deceptive calm, a serene facade that masks the city's restless spirit. But beneath the glittering lights and endless nights, shadows linger, holding secrets too dark to be spoken. My name is Jack Turner, and what I'm about to recount is a tale that has haunted me ever since that fateful night in January 1947. A night that forever changed my perception of reality and plunged me into a nightmare from which I still can't escape. I was a young reporter then, eager to make my mark on the bustling streets of Hollywood. The allure of fame and the promise of uncovering the truth drew me to the city of dreams and despair. It was during the winter of 1947 that I received a tip, a whisper in the wind about a gruesome discovery that had shaken the very core of Los Angeles. Elizabeth Short, a young woman known as the Black Dahlia, had been found brutally murdered, her body mutilated in a manner that defied comprehension. The case was shrouded in mystery, with no leads and an air of macabre fascination that gripped the city. Driven by a mixture of curiosity and ambition, I immersed myself in the investigation, determined to uncover the truth behind the headlines. The police were baffled, the media sensationalized, and the public morbidly intrigued. As I delved deeper, I began to sense an unsettling presence, a darkness that seemed to follow me through the shadowed alleys and dimly lit streets of Los Angeles. The nights grew colder, the wind howling through the palm trees like the cries of lost souls. I found myself drawn to the places Elizabeth had frequented, retracing her steps in the hope of finding a clue, a hint, anything that could lead me to her killer. Each location held its own ghostly whispers, as if the city itself was mourning her untimely demise. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the city, I received a call from an informant who claimed to have seen Elizabeth just days before her death. He spoke in hushed tones, his voice trembling with fear. "Meet me at the old Willow Mansion on Sunset Boulevard. Midnight. Come alone." Intrigued and apprehensive, I made my way to the mansion, a sprawling estate abandoned for years, its windows boarded up and ivy crawling up its decaying facade. The moon hung low, casting an eerie glow that seemed to breathe life into the shadows. My heart pounded as I approached the heavy wooden doors, the sound of my footsteps muffled by the thick snow that had begun to fall. I pushed open the door, the hinges groaning in protest, and stepped into the grand foyer. The air was thick with dust and the scent of mildew, the remnants of opulent parties long since forgotten. As I called out for my informant, a cold chill ran down my spine, and the temperature seemed to drop abruptly. The silence was deafening, broken only by the distant ticking of an old grandfather clock. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the darkness, a tall man dressed in a dark overcoat, his face obscured by the brim of his hat. "You're looking for answers, aren't you?" he asked, his voice smooth yet carrying an undercurrent of menace. I nodded cautiously, trying to mask the fear that gnawed at my insides. "Yes, I need to know what happened to Elizabeth Short." He stepped closer, his eyes gleaming in the dim light. "Some truths are better left buried, Jack, but since you insist, I'll tell you what you need to know." As he began to speak, the room seemed to warp and shift, the walls closing in around us. He recounted tales of obsession and madness, of a killer whose motives were as twisted as the nightmarish visions he conjured. Elizabeth, he revealed, had stumbled upon something, a dark secret that someone was desperate to keep hidden. Her beauty and innocence were merely a facade, masking the depths of her discoveries. The man's words painted a picture of a city teetering on the edge of sanity, where the lines between reality and nightmare blurred into a horrifying tapestry. He spoke of rituals performed in the dead of night, of shadows that moved with a life of their own, and of a presence that hungered for more than just flesh. It craved the very essence of human fear. As he spoke, the atmosphere grew heavier, the air thick with an oppressive energy that pressed down on me. I felt the walls of the mansion closing in, the shadows lengthening and contorting into grotesque shapes. The man's story intertwined with my own fears, creating a vortex of darkness that threatened to consume me. Elizabeth knew too much, he continued, his voice a chilling whisper. She saw things that should never be seen, and now, she pays the price. The darkness she uncovered, it doesn't rest. It watches, it waits, and it hunts. Before I could respond, the man vanished, leaving me alone in the suffocating silence of the mansion. The oppressive energy lingered, the weight of his words settling into my very soul. I fled the mansion, the snow now falling in blinding sheets, obscuring my path and adding to the disorienting chaos that had taken hold of my mind. Days turned into weeks as I struggled to piece together the fragments of the truth. The more I uncovered, the deeper I fell into a web of darkness that seemed to wrap around me, tightening with each revelation. The city's underbelly revealed itself in ways I had never imagined. Hidden rooms, forgotten passages, and secrets buried beneath layers of deceit and blood. The shadows of Los Angeles seemed to follow me, whispering in the dead of night, their voices a haunting melody that echoed through my dreams. I began to see visions of Elizabeth, her eyes hollow and filled with sorrow, her beauty marred by the terror that had consumed her. The lines between reality and hallucination blurred, leaving me questioning my own sanity. One night, as I sat in my cluttered office, poring over old maps and newspaper clippings, the room grew inexplicably cold. The lights flickered, casting eerie shadows that danced across the walls. The familiar ticking of the clock slowed to a crawl, each second stretching into an eternity. I heard the soft, mournful singing of a lullaby, a haunting melody that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere all at once. Elizabeth's voice echoed in my mind, her presence palpable as if she were standing beside me, her hand reaching out in silent desperation. "Remember us," she whispered, her voice a ghostly caress. "Remember our stories." The realization hit me like a tidal wave. The shadows, the whispers, the apparitions. They were not just figments of a tormented mind, but the lingering spirits of those lost to the darkness of Los Angeles. Elizabeth's story was intertwined with countless others, victims of a city that thrived on its secrets and fed off the fear that permeated its streets. Determined to bring closure to the restless souls, I delved deeper into the investigation, uncovering connections between Elizabeth's case and other unsolved mysteries that had plagued the city for decades. Each discovery led me further into the heart of darkness, the shadows growing thicker and more malevolent with each step I took. One fateful night, driven by a need for answers and haunted by the apparitions that tormented my every move, I returned to the site of Elizabeth's last known whereabouts, a secluded alleyway bathed in the cold glow of streetlights. The air was thick with the scent of rain and decay, the remnants of the storm still lingering in the aftermath. As I stood there, the temperature dropped once more, the wind whispering through the alley like the voices of the lost. The shadows coalesced into a single, imposing figure, a man cloaked in darkness, his eyes glowing with an unnatural light. The presence was suffocating, the air thick with malevolence as he advanced towards me, his form shifting and contorting with every step. "Why do you seek the truth?" he demanded, his voice a guttural growl that reverberated through the alley. I steadied myself, refusing to back down, because they deserve to be remembered, because their stories shouldn't be forgotten. He paused, his eyes boring into mine with an intensity that threatened to break me. "The truth is a double-edged sword, Jack. Can set us free, or it can drag us into the abyss." But my resolve was unshakable. I choose to remember them. I choose to honor their memories. With a sudden surge of energy, the shadowy figure dissipated, the oppressive weight lifting from the alleyway. The shadows retreated, the voices fading into the night as the first rays of dawn pierced through the darkness, illuminating the alley in a soft, golden light. As I walked away, a sense of peace settled over me, the haunting presence now a distant memory. I had faced the darkness and emerged on the other side, my quest for the truth granting closure to the restless souls of Los Angeles. Years later, the case of the Black Dahlia remains one of the city's most enduring mysteries, a symbol of the darkness that lurks beneath the surface of even the most glamorous facades. My investigation may not have solved the case, but it uncovered a deeper truth, one that speaks to the human need for remembrance and the enduring power of memory to bridge the gap between life and death. And so, I continue to walk the streets of Los Angeles, listening to the whispers of the past and honoring the stories of those who were lost to the shadows. The city may never fully reveal its secrets, but I know that as long as I remember their stories, the restless spirits will find peace, and their echoes will forever resonate through the heart of Los Angeles. Story number 2. Shadows over the Columbia. Winter in the Pacific Northwest was unforgiving, a relentless grip of cold that seemed to seep into every crevice of the landscape. The sky was a perpetual gray, the clouds heavy with unshed snow, casting an oppressive gloom over the sprawling forests and the meandering Columbia River. As someone who had spent years delving into the mysteries that shrouded this region, the story of D.B. Cooper was one that had always intrigued me. The audacious hijacking, the daring parachute escape, and the eerie disappearance had left an indelible mark on the annals of unsolved cases. But there was more to the legend than mere criminal audacity. It was whispered that something otherworldly had intervened that night, leaving behind shadows that still lingered. It was the winter of 1971 when I decided to retrace the steps of Cooper, driven by a mix of professional curiosity and a personal need to understand the inexplicable. Armed with my notebook, camera, and a deep-seated belief in the supernatural, I set out to uncover the truth behind the man who vanished into the night, leaving behind questions that had puzzled investigators for decades. The journey began in Portland, where the echoes of that fateful day still resonated in hushed conversations and speculative theories. I interviewed retired police officers, aviation experts, and locals who had witnessed the events unfold. Most dismissed the supernatural elements as fanciful distractions, attributing Cooper's disappearance to sheer luck or meticulous planning. But there were those who believed that Cooper had encountered something beyond human comprehension, an entity that had played a hand in his vanishing act. As I delved deeper, I uncovered accounts of strange occurrences near the Columbia River on the night Cooper disappeared. Witnesses spoke of eerie lights dancing above the water, shadows moving against the current, and an unnatural stillness that seemed to permeate the air. These stories, often dismissed as the ramblings of troubled minds, hinted at a presence that defied explanation. Determined to find answers, I ventured to the banks of the Columbia River, where Cooper's last known location lay shrouded in mystery. The river, a lifeline for the region, had always held a certain allure, a source of sustenance, a barrier against the wilderness, and now, a keeper of secrets too dark to unveil. The night I chose to explore was particularly harsh, the wind howling through the trees and snowflakes swirling in a frenzied dance around me. I set up my equipment near a secluded spot where the money was found years later, decades after Cooper's disappearance. The river's surface was a mirror of the tumultuous sky above, reflecting the turmoil that had transpired. As midnight approached, the temperature plummeted, the cold seeping into my bones despite my layers of clothing. The only sounds were the relentless gusts of wind and the distant, mournful call of an owl. Hours passed in uneasy silence, the darkness pressing in around me. Just as I began to question my resolve, a faint light appeared on the horizon, a soft, pulsating glow that seemed to move against the current of the river. My heart raced as I watched the light grow brighter, its movements erratic yet purposeful. It hovered above the water, casting long, distorted shadows that twisted and contorted in unnatural ways. I reached for my camera, hoping to capture the phenomenon, but before I could take a shot, the light shifted abruptly, disappearing into the depths of the river with a sound that resembled a distant scream. The air grew colder, the oppressive silence broken by a low, guttural whisper that seemed to emanate from the very earth beneath my feet. "Why do you seek the shadows?" the voice intoned, this tone both ancient and sorrowful. I spun around, flashlight piercing the darkness. But there was no one in sight, only the swirling snow and the restless river. My breath quickened, the weight of the moment pressing down on me. "Who are you?" I called out, my voice trembling. The air around me shimmered, and the shadows began to move, swirling in a vortex of darkness that threatened to engulf me. Figures emerged from the depths, ghostly apparitions clad in the attire of the 1940s, their eyes hollow and their expressions etched with eternal sorrow. Among them stood Cooper, his face a mask of determination and fear, his eyes reflecting the pain of his unending journey. "You cannot escape the shadows," Cooper whispered, his voice echoing through the night. "They hold the secrets of the forgotten, the lost souls of the river." I felt an overwhelming sense of dread, the realization dawning that Cooper's disappearance was intertwined with forces beyond my understanding. The shadows closed in, their whispers growing louder, weaving a tapestry of anguish and regret that bound me to the river's cursed waters. Desperate to break free, I tried to flee, but the shadows seemed to move with a will of their own, guiding me towards the river's edge. The wind howled louder, the snowstorm intensifying as if nature itself was conspiring against me. I stumbled, falling to the ground as the apparitions reached out, their touch cold and intangible yet suffocating in its intensity. "Remember us," they cried in unison, their voices a haunting chorus that reverberated through my very being. "Honor our stories, or be consumed by the shadows." Summoning every ounce of strength, I stood up, facing the apparitions with a resolve born of fear and fascination. "I will remember," I vowed, my voice steady despite the turmoil within. "I will uncover the truth and honor your memories." The shadows recoiled, their forms flickering as the oppressive atmosphere began to lift. The river's surface calmed, the eerie lights fading into the distance as dawn broke over the horizon. The storm subsided, the snow settling into a blanket of white that concealed the night's horrors. Exhausted and shaken, I packed up my equipment, the weight of the night's events pressing heavily on me. As I made my way back to civilization, the spirits of the lost seemed to watch from the shadows, their whispers a lingering reminder of the mysteries that lay beneath the river's surface. In the weeks that followed, I pored over my notes and recordings, piecing together the fragments of that haunting night. The story of D.B. Cooper was more than a tale of criminal ingenuity. It was a narrative woven with supernatural threads, a testament to the unseen forces that govern our world. The apparitions, the whispers, and the shadows were not mere figments of a troubled mind but echoes of a past that refused to be forgotten. My investigation led me to old archives and forgotten journals, uncovering accounts of other unexplained disappearances along the Columbia River. Each story bore the same mark, a presence that lingered, seeking recognition and release from the shadows that bound them. It became clear that the river was more than a geographical landmark. It was a conduit for the restless spirits of the lost, a place where the veil between the living and the dead was thin and fragile. Determined to honor their memories and bring closure to their eternal suffering, I organized a memorial along the river's edge, inviting the families of the disappeared and the curious alike. As we gathered to pay our respects, the atmosphere was filled with a sense of reverence and hope. I spoke of the stories I had uncovered, of the shadows that lingered and the importance of remembering those who had been lost to the river's unforgiving embrace. As the final words of the memorial were spoken, a gentle breeze stirred, and the first rays of sunlight pierced through the clouds, casting a golden glow over the water. The oppressive darkness lifted, replaced by a serene tranquility that spoke of peace and release. The shadows receded, their presence fading into the light as if the spirits had finally found the closure they so desperately sought. Reflecting on that winter's journey, I realized that some mysteries are not meant to be solved but to be remembered. The story of D.B. Cooper and the countless others who vanished along the Columbia River serve as a haunting reminder of the thin line that separates our world from the unknown. The whispers of the past continue to echo through the ages, urging us to honor their stories and acknowledge the shadows that linger in the frozen landscapes of our history. And so, as I continue to explore the hidden corners of our world, I carry with me the lessons learned from the shadows over the Columbia. The spirits of the lost may never find complete peace, but through remembrance and respect, we can offer them the solace they seek, ensuring that their stories remain alive in the annals of time, forever etched in the shadows of the eternal winter. Story number 3. Whispers on Dyatlov Pass. Winter in the Ural Mountains was unforgiving, a relentless force that transformed the landscape into a desolate, icy expanse. My name is Alexei Ivanov, and I've spent the last decade delving into the mysteries that lurk in the shadows of our world. The Dyatlov Pass incident has always haunted me, a chilling enigma that defies explanation. In 1959, 9 experienced hikers met their tragic end under circumstances so bizarre that they've become the stuff of legends. Drawn by a need to uncover the truth and perhaps find closure for their restless spirits, I embarked on a journey that would blur the lines between reality and nightmare. It was late November when I decided to make the trek to Dyatlov Pass. The weather forecast warned of a severe storm, but my determination overshadowed any sense of caution. Equipped with modern gear, a satellite phone, and a deep-seated curiosity, I set out with a small team of fellow investigators. Our goal was simple: retrace the steps of the ill-fated hikers and document any anomalies that could shed light on their mysterious deaths. The first few days were arduous. The path was treacherous, blanketed in thick snow that muffled our footsteps and made navigation a challenge. The wind howled like a living beast, shaking our tents and sending snow swirling into our faces. Each night, we huddled around a fire, sharing stories of the original hikers, Igor Dyatlov and his 8 companions, whose bravery and camaraderie had captivated our imaginations. On the 4th day, as we neared the infamous pass, the weather took a turn for the worse. The sky darkened ominously, clouds swirling in a frenzied dance that seemed almost unnatural. The temperature plummeted, and visibility dropped to near zero. We were forced to set up camp early, the storm unleashing its fury with relentless intensity. As midnight approached, the wind reached a crescendo, howling through the mountain passes and rattling our gear. Suddenly, a piercing scream shattered the silence, a sound so raw and desperate that it sent chills down my spine. We grabbed our flashlights and rushed towards the source, hearts pounding with a mix of fear and urgency. The scream led us to a narrow ravine, partially obscured by the blinding snow. There, half buried in the white expanse, lay the remnants of a tent. The structure was torn open, the inner fabric frayed and shredded. Footprints surrounded the site, leading away into the darkness. Yet no sign of the hikers themselves. My mind raced as I recalled the original incident. The hikers had fled their tent in a panic, leaving behind everything they owned, driven by an inexplicable fear. As we stood there, the wind seemed to carry whispers, faint, ghostly voices that danced on the edge of hearing. "Help us! Don't leave us!" The words were barely audible, yet their presence was undeniable. A sense of unease settled over us, the boundary between the living and the dead growing thin in the heart of the storm. We decided to follow the footprints, pushing through the knee-deep snow that threatened to swallow us whole. Hours passed in a blur of white, the storm showing no signs of relenting. Exhaustion set in, our breaths visible in the freezing air. But the whispers persisted, guiding us deeper into the pass. It was as if the very land was trying to communicate, to lead us to the truth buried beneath layers of snow and time. Just as dawn began to break, casting a pale light over the frozen landscape, we stumbled upon an old, abandoned cabin. The structure was dilapidated, its windows shattered and doors hanging askew, but it provided a semblance of shelter from the storm. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of decay and something else, something metallic and unsettling. We spread out, searching for any clues that could explain the hiker's fate. In the dim light, I noticed strange symbols etched into the walls, ancient runes that seemed to pulsate with a dark energy. My heart raced as I traced the markings with my fingers, feeling an inexplicable pull towards them. The whispers grew louder, more insistent, as if urging me to uncover the secrets they guarded. Suddenly, the temperature plummeted further, and the room was plunged into darkness as the storm outside intensified. Panic surged through me as I fumbled for my flashlight, but the beam flickered and died, leaving us in complete blackness. The whispers morphed into anguished cries, echoing through the cabin like the tortured souls of the lost. Shadows began to dance on the walls, twisting and contorting into grotesque shapes that defied logic. I felt an invisible force pressing down on me, making it difficult to breathe, as the presence of something malevolent filled the room. One of my team members, Elena, let out a scream as a shadowy figure materialized before us. A man with hollow eyes and a twisted expression, his form barely distinguishable from the darkness around him. "Why did you come here?" he demanded, his voice a haunting echo that reverberated through our souls. "We're trying to understand," I replied, my voice trembling with fear. "Please, help us." The apparition lunged forward, his presence overwhelming and oppressive. The room seemed to warp and shift, the walls closing in as the shadows grew more intense. Desperate to escape, we fled the cabin, the whispers now a cacophony of pain and rage that chased us through the storm. The footprints reappeared, leading us back to the ravine where it all began, as if the land itself was condemning us to relive the tragedy of that fateful night. Exhausted and broken, we returned to our campsite, the storm finally beginning to subside as dawn broke over the horizon. The memories of the night lingered, the whispers and shadows etched into our minds like permanent scars. We packed up our gear, the weight of what we had experienced pressing heavily on our hearts. Back in civilization, I pored over our findings, the symbols and the apparition serving as a constant reminder of the darkness that had touched us. The Dyatlov Pass incident remained unsolved, a chilling mystery that defied explanation. But for those of us who had ventured into the heart of the storm, the truth was clear: we had encountered something beyond our understanding, a presence that still lingered on the frozen peaks, waiting for someone to uncover its secrets. The whispers of Dyatlov Pass continue to haunt me, a spectral reminder of the lost souls who still wander the icy trails, their cries echoing through the mountains, forever trapped in an eternal winter of despair. And as I share their stories, I honor their memories, ensuring that the shadows of Dyatlov Pass remain a testament to the enduring mysteries that lie just beyond the veil of our reality. Story number 4. Whispers in the Basement. Winter in Boulder, Colorado, was particularly harsh that year. The snow piled high against the windows of our quaint Victorian home, transforming our front yard into a shimmering expanse of white. My name is Laura Ramsey, and the story I'm about to share is one that has haunted me every winter since that fateful night in December 1996. Our home was nestled in a quiet neighborhood, surrounded by tall pines that seemed to touch the sky. It was a place where neighbors knew each other by name, and children played freely in the snow-covered yards. My daughter, JonBenet, was the light of my life, a spirited 6-year-old with dreams of becoming the next little Miss America. Her laughter echoed through our home, bringing warmth to even the coldest of days. That December began like any other, with the festive decorations adorning our house and the scent of freshly baked cookies filling the air. JonBenet was excited about the upcoming beauty pageant, meticulously choosing her dresses and practicing her walk. I watched her with pride, oblivious to the darkness that was about to descend upon us. On the evening of December 26th, a blizzard hit Boulder with unexpected ferocity. The winds howled like restless spirits, and the snow fell in relentless sheets, burying the streets in minutes. The power flickered and died, plunging our home into darkness. We huddled together in the living room, JonBenet wrapped in a cozy blanket, her eyes wide with a mixture of fear and excitement. As the storm raged outside, I decided to take JonBenet to bed early, hoping to shield her from the tempest's wrath. We climbed the creaky wooden stairs to her room, the sound of the storm muffled by the thick curtains. I tucked her into bed, kissing her forehead and whispering reassurances as she drifted into a restless sleep. A few hours later, the tranquility of the night was shattered by a piercing scream. My heart raced as I leapt from my seat, rushing upstairs to JonBenet's room. The door was ajar, and the eerie silence inside sent chills down my spine. I pushed the door open, calling her name, but there was no response. Panic surged through me as I scanned the room, desperate to find her. There, lying lifeless on the floor, was JonBenet. Her small body was contorted unnaturally, eyes wide open, staring blankly at the ceiling. The sight of her crushed innocence, the blood pooling around her, shattered me into a million pieces. I fell to my knees, sobbing uncontrollably, unable to comprehend the horror before me. The police arrived within minutes, their presence both a comfort and a stark reminder of the nightmare that had unfolded in our home. They questioned us tirelessly, searching for answers that seemed to evade even the most seasoned investigators. The scene was gruesome. JonBenet's body showed signs of severe trauma. Yet there were no clear indications of who or what had committed such a heinous act. As days turned into weeks, the media descended upon our lives like vultures, eager to capitalize on the tragedy. The relentless scrutiny and invasive questions only added to my anguish, making it difficult to find solace in the midst of my grief. Friends and family offered their support, but the wound of losing JonBenet felt too deep to ever truly heal. But it wasn't just the physical pain that tormented me. Strange occurrences began to plague our home, especially during the long, dark winters. Objects would move on their own. Doors creaked open and closed without explanation, and the sound of faint laughter echoed through the halls. At night, I would awaken to see JonBenet standing at the foot of my bed, her eyes filled with sorrow instead of the usual sparkle. One particularly cold night, as I sat by the fireplace trying to find peace in the crackling flames, I heard a soft whisper, "Mama!" The voice was unmistakably JonBenet's, filled with an otherworldly sadness. I turned to see her standing in the doorway, her translucent form shimmering in the firelight. Why did this happen? Tears streamed down my face as I reached out to her, but my hand passed through her ethereal body. "I don't know, sweetheart," I whispered, my voice breaking. "I'm so sorry." Days turned into months, and the paranormal activities intensified. The whispers grew louder, the apparitions more frequent. It felt as though JonBenet was reaching out from beyond, desperate for answers that would set her spirit free. I became obsessed with finding the truth, delving into every possible theory, every lead, hoping to uncover the mystery that had stolen my daughter. One evening, driven by a need for closure, I decided to explore the basement, the room where JonBenet was found. The door had been bolted shut since that tragic night, but memories of the scream and the lifeless form compelled me to confront the darkness that lay beneath our home. With trembling hands, I managed to pry the door open, revealing the cold, empty space that had become a symbol of our loss. As I stepped into the basement, the temperature dropped sharply, my breath visible in the frigid air. The room was cluttered with old furniture and forgotten belongings, remnants of happier times. But beneath the layers of dust and decay, I sensed a presence, a lingering sorrow that seemed to weigh down the very air around me. I approached the spot where JonBenet's body had been found, my heart pounding with a mixture of fear and determination. The memories of that night flooded back. The storm's fury, the desperate screams, and the overwhelming sense of loss. As I stood there, a soft light began to glow in the corner of the room, illuminating a figure cloaked in shadows. It was a man, his face obscured by darkness, standing silently by the wall. His presence was both menacing and sorrowful, a ghostly sentinel guarding the secrets of that tragic night. "You shouldn't have come here," he whispered, his voice a chilling echo that resonated through the basement. summoning every ounce of courage. I demanded, "Who are you? What do you want?" The apparition tilted his head, revealing eyes that burned with an unnatural intensity. "I took something that belonged to me," he replied, his voice hollow with regret. "Now, it demands its price." Suddenly, the room seemed to distort, the walls closing in as shadows twisted and contorted into grotesque shapes. The temperature plummeted further, and the whispers of JonBenet filled the air, intertwining with the apparition's lament. I felt an invisible force pressing down on me, making it difficult to breathe. As the truth began to unravel, through the chaos, I pieced together the fragmented memories, the secret meetings, the unspoken fears, and the hidden truths that had led to JonBenet's untimely death. The man before me was not just a ghost but a manifestation of unresolved anguish and betrayal, a spirit bound by the darkness that had consumed our lives. "I need to let go," I whispered, understanding that the only way to free JonBenet was to confront the shadows of our past. "Help me help you." The apparition's form began to shimmer, the oppressive energy dissipating as the weight of his confession lifted. "Remember us," he echoed, his voice now filled with a sense of peace. "Honor our stories, and we will find our way." With those final words, the shadows receded, and the basement was bathed in a soft, calming light. The temperature normalized, and the lingering whispers transformed into a gentle lullaby, a haunting yet soothing melody that spoke of redemption and closure. I left the basement that night with a heavy heart but a sense of fulfillment. The truth behind JonBenet's death had been revealed, not through forensic evidence or relentless pursuit, but through a confrontation with the spirits that had long sought peace. As the winters continued to blanket our home in snow, the apparitions ceased, and the whispers became a distant memory, replaced by the warmth of love and remembrance. Years later, as I look back on that tragic winter, I realize that some mysteries are not meant to be solved through conventional means but through understanding and compassion. JonBenet's spirit found peace, and so did mine, as I learned to honor the memories of those we lost and the shadows that once haunted our lives. The story of the Black Dahlia may remain unsolved, but in our own story, we found the truth that set us free. And as the snow continues to fall each winter, I hold onto the lessons learned in the depths of our grief, ensuring that JonBenet's legacy lives on, not as a symbol of tragedy, but as a testament to the enduring power of love and the unbreakable bonds between mother and child. Story number 5. Whispers of the Zodiac. Winter in San Francisco had always held a peculiar stillness, a deceptive calm that masked the city's restless spirit. But during the cold months of 1968 and 1969, an unsettling presence began to seep into the heart of California, casting long shadows over its streets and alleys. My name is David Harris, and what I'm about to recount is a chilling tale that blurred the lines between reality and nightmare. A story of obsession, fear, and the enigmatic figure known as the Zodiac Killer. I was a young journalist, hungry for stories that would make my mark in the bustling world of San Francisco newspapers. The city was alive with the vibrant energy of the late 60s. Yet beneath its lively facade, a sinister darkness was taking root. It started with whispers, rumors of a mysterious figure leaving cryptic messages and committing heinous acts of violence. The Zodiac Killer, as he came to be known, was a name that sent shivers down the spines of those who dared to discuss him. The first confirmed Zodiac attack occurred on December 20th, 1968, when a young couple, Betty Lou Jensen and David Faraday, were brutally murdered on Lake Herman Road in Benicia. The gruesome nature of their deaths, coupled with the killer's taunting letters to the press, ignited a frenzy of fear and curiosity. I was assigned to cover the story, eager to delve into the mystery that had captivated the entire state. As I interviewed police officers, neighbors, and friends of the victims, the narrative painted a picture of a meticulous and cold-hearted predator. The Zodiac's letters were filled with cryptic ciphers, taunting the authorities and boasting about his crimes. He demanded recognition, a twisted desire to be acknowledged as the mastermind behind the chaos he unleashed. One evening, as I sat in my cramped apartment surrounded by stacks of newspaper clippings and hastily scribbled notes, I received a mysterious package. Inside was a letter signed Zodiac, accompanied by a cipher that remained unsolved. My heart pounded with a mix of fear and excitement. This was my chance to get closer to the truth, to uncover the identity of the man behind the mask. Days turned into weeks as I immersed myself in the study of ciphers, working tirelessly to crack the Zodiac's codes. The obsession consumed me, blurring the lines between my work and personal life. Friends began to notice my growing paranoia. My sleepless nights spent hunched over deciphering the cryptic messages. But the allure of the mystery was irresistible, a dark fascination that drew me deeper into the abyss. One chilly January night, as the city lay blanketed in snow, I received another letter from the Zodiac. This time, the message was different, more personal, more menacing. It spoke of a meeting, a confrontation between the hunter and the hunted. The letter included a partial address and a time, details that promised answers but also threatened danger. Despite the warnings from my editors and the palpable fear that gnawed at my conscience, I felt an inexplicable pull to attend the meeting. It was as if the Zodiac had reached out to me personally, drawing me into his twisted game. The thought of facing him was terrifying, yet the desire to uncover the truth outweighed my fear. On a moonless night in February, I found myself standing outside an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city. The wind howled through the skeletal remains of buildings, and the snow whipped around me, obscuring my vision. My heart raced as I approached the entrance, every step echoing in the eerie silence. The door creaked open slowly, revealing a dimly lit interior that seemed to breathe with an otherworldly presence. I stepped inside, the cold air enveloping me like a shroud. Shadows danced on the walls, and the faint sound of laughter echoed through the vast space. As I ventured deeper, I felt a growing sense of unease, the air thick with tension and unspoken threats. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the darkness, a man dressed in a long coat, his face obscured by the brim of his hat. "Welcome, David," he said, his voice smooth yet laden with menace. "I've been expecting you." I froze, the realization dawning that I was face to face with the man responsible for so much fear and sorrow. "Why are you doing this?" I demanded, my voice barely a whisper. He chuckled, a sound that sent chills down my spine. "Isn't it obvious? I want to be remembered. I want my legacy to live on through fear and mystery." As he spoke, the room seemed to warp and distort, the boundaries between reality and nightmare blurring into a surreal landscape. Shadows twisted into grotesque shapes, and the air grew thick with an oppressive darkness that threatened to consume me. The Zodiac moved closer, his presence both captivating and terrifying, until I felt an invisible force pressing down on me, making it difficult to breathe. Desperation clawed at my mind as I struggled to maintain composure. "What do you want from me?" I asked, my voice trembling with fear and determination. He leaned in, his eyes burning with an unnatural intensity. "I want you to tell the world my story, to let them know the man behind the mask. You have the power to expose me, to make me immortal." Before I could respond, the room erupted in chaos. The shadows surged forward, swirling around us in a frenzy of darkness and fear. I tried to run, but the darkness seemed to move with a life of its own, trapping me in a vortex of terror. The whispers of the victims echoed through the room, their voices merging with the Zodiac's sinister laughter. In a final act of defiance, I pulled out my camera, capturing the haunting scene as the darkness closed in around me. The last thing I saw was the Zodiac's smirking face, his eyes devoid of any humanity, before everything went black. When I awoke, I was lying outside the warehouse, the storm having subsided. My camera lay broken beside me, the memories of the night fragmented and hazy. The police found me wandering the snowy streets, delirious and incoherent, clutching a tattered letter from the Zodiac. The authorities dismissed my account as the ravings of a traumatized mind. But deep down, I knew the truth. I had encountered the darkness that the Zodiac embodied, a presence that still lingered in the shadows of San Francisco. Years passed, and the Zodiac killer remained an unsolved mystery. His letters and ciphers a testament to his desire for recognition. The final cipher was cracked in 2020, but it only deepened the enigma, revealing messages that hinted at his continued existence beyond death, a legacy of fear that transcended time. Reflecting on those harrowing events, I realized that some mysteries are not meant to be unraveled. Their secrets best left buried in the shadows. The Zodiac's legacy lives on, a haunting reminder of the thin veil that separates the living from the restless spirits that seek to be remembered. To this day, when winter blankets San Francisco in snow, I feel the lingering presence of the Zodiac, his whispers echoing through the cold air. The story of the Zodiac killer is not just one of unsolved murders and cryptic messages, but a chilling tale of obsession and the enduring power of fear. And as I share my story, I honor the memories of those lost to his darkness, ensuring that their voices are never silenced, even in the depths of the eternal winter. Story number 6. Shadows over Hinterkaifeck. Winter in rural Germany was unforgiving, a relentless blanket of snow that transformed the landscape into a desolate expanse of white silence. I had always been fascinated by true crime, especially cases that remained shrouded in mystery. The Hinterkaifeck murders of 1922 had captured my imagination for years, the brutal killing of 6 members of the Gruber family on their isolated farm, the eerie signs of the perpetrator's presence after the fact, and the fact that no one was ever caught. Determined to uncover the truth behind this haunting case, I decided to visit the site, hoping to piece together the fragments of a story that had baffled investigators for decades. The journey to Hinterkaifeck was arduous. The narrow, winding roads cut through dense forests, their paths obscured by thick snow that muffled the sounds of the wilderness. As my car trudged through the deep drifts, the oppressive silence of the countryside enveloped me, broken only by the occasional creak of the vehicle and the whispering wind. By late afternoon, I arrived at the farmstead, its old wooden structures standing stoically against the biting cold. The remnants of the once bustling homestead were now eerily quiet, the windows boarded up and the door slightly ajar. Inviting yet foreboding, I stepped out into the frigid air, the snow crunching beneath my boots as I approached the farmhouse. The sight of the abandoned buildings sent a shiver down my spine, their decaying facades bearing the scars of time and tragedy. As I crossed the threshold into the main house, the air grew colder, the temperature dropping noticeably as if the very essence of sorrow had seeped into the walls. My flashlight flickered, casting long shadows that danced ominously across the rooms, each one holding silent witness to the horror that had unfolded within. The living room was a time capsule of the early 20th century. Furniture covered in dust and cobwebs, portraits of the Gruber family staring down with somber expressions. I could almost feel their presence, the weight of their loss pressing down on me. As I moved through the house, I noticed peculiar signs, fresh footprints in the snow outside leading to the basement, an untouched meal on the dining table, and a meticulously organized kitchen that suggested someone had been here recently. Descending the narrow staircase to the basement, a chill ran through me. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and something metallic, a lingering reminder of bloodshed. The basement had served as the family's workspace and storeroom, and it felt like a sanctum now, untouched by time yet heavy with untold stories. I set up my equipment, determined to capture any anomalies that might reveal the truth behind the murders. Hours passed in tense silence, the only sounds the occasional drip of melting ice and the distant howl of the wind. Just as I began to question the validity of my quest, a faint noise broke the stillness, a soft thudding that seemed to emanate from the far end of the basement. My heart raced as I directed my flashlight towards the source, the beam cutting through the darkness to reveal an old, wooden crate that seemed out of place. Approaching cautiously, I reached out to examine it, my fingers brushing against the cold surface. Suddenly, the temperature plummeted, my breath visible in the frigid air as the room darkened unnaturally. The thudding intensified, now accompanied by the unmistakable sound of footsteps. Slow, deliberate steps that echoed through the basement like the heartbeat of a restless spirit. I spun around, my flashlight beam darting in every direction. But there was no one in sight. The footprints on the snow outside had seemed like a fleeting illusion. But now the presence of someone or something was undeniable. Gathering every ounce of courage, I followed the sounds, leading me to a narrow corridor that stretched deeper into the house, far beyond where any sane person would tread after the night's tragedy. As I navigated the maze-like passages, the air grew colder, the shadows lengthening and twisting with malevolent intent. The walls seemed to close in, the oppressive atmosphere suffocating as the footsteps grew louder, more insistent. I could hear faint whispers, voices overlapping in a cacophony of sorrow and rage, their words indistinct yet laden with anguish. The presence felt tangible, an unseen force pressing down on me, making it difficult to breathe. At the end of the corridor stood a door, slightly ajar, the source of the haunting sounds. My heart pounded as I pushed it open, revealing a room bathed in an unnatural light that seemed to emanate from nowhere. In the center stood a figure, tall and shadowy, its form barely distinguishable against the eerie glow. The apparition's eyes met mine, hollow and filled with an unending sorrow that pierced through the darkness. "Why are you here?" the figure whispered, its voice a ghostly echo that resonated through the room. I stumbled back, fear gripping me as I tried to comprehend the presence before me. I'm trying to understand," I managed to stammer, my voice barely audible over the lingering whispers. "What happened here?" The figure reached out a translucent hand, its touch cold and intangible. "Remember us," it whispered, the words wrapping around me like a shroud. "Honor our memories, and let us find peace." As the apparition faded, the room seemed to breathe a sigh of relief, the oppressive atmosphere lifting as if a weight had been lifted from the house. The whispers quieted, replaced by a profound silence that spoke of closure and acceptance. I felt a sense of calm wash over me, a silent acknowledgement that the spirits of the Gruber family had finally been heard. Leaving the basement, I took one last look around the haunted homestead, the echoes of the past lingering in the cold air. The mystery of Hinterkaifeck had revealed a deeper truth, not just of a brutal murder, but of restless souls seeking remembrance and peace. As I drove away, the snow continued to fall, the night reclaiming its silence. But the memory of that night remained etched in my mind, a testament to the enduring power of memory and the thin veil that separates our world from the realms of the departed. Back in the warmth of my study, I pored over my notes and recordings, the experience leaving an indelible mark on my soul. The Hinterkaifeck murders were no longer just an unsolved case, but a haunting reminder of the lives lost and the shadows that linger in the corners of our world. As winter approached once more, I found myself drawn back to the memories of that night, ensuring that the story of the Gruber family would never be forgotten, their whispers echoing through the silent snows of Hinterkaifeck. Story number 7. Whispers in the Wilderness. Winter in Oklahoma was a deceptive blanket, cloaking the landscape in serene white while hiding the secrets that lurked beneath. My name is Michael Jameson, and the story I'm about to share is one that has haunted me ever since that fateful winter in 2009. A tale of disappearance, darkness, and the lingering echoes of the unknown. The Jameson family, my parents, Robert and Linda, and my younger sister, Emily, were always adventurous. Growing up, we spent countless weekends exploring the sprawling woods that bordered our small town. The allure of untouched land, the promise of discovery, and the bond we shared drew us deeper into the wilderness each time. So when Robert decided to take us on a land hunting trip in early December, I was thrilled. Little did I know, the trip would mark the beginning of an unsolvable mystery. We set out on a crisp morning, the sky clear and the air filled with the scent of pine and earth. The maps Robert had meticulously studied guided us to a secluded area deep within the forest. Far from the beaten paths, the promise of vast, undeveloped land was irresistible, and we were eager to stake our claim. By late afternoon, we had found the perfect spot, a clearing surrounded by towering trees, the ground beneath our feet soft with recent snowfall. As night approached, Robert set up camp with practiced ease. Emily, bundled in her favorite red jacket, insisted on helping, her youthful enthusiasm a bright spot against the encroaching darkness. We sat around the fire, sharing stories and laughter, the warmth of the flames a comforting barrier against the chill that crept in with the setting sun. But as the night deepened, an unsettling stillness settled over the forest. The wind ceased its whispering through the trees, and an oppressive silence took hold. Robert, ever the pragmatic one, dismissed our unease as the natural quiet of the wilderness. Yet, there was something different about this night, a palpable tension that hung in the air like a heavy fog. Around midnight, Emily awoke with a start, her eyes wide with fear. "Michael, Mom, Dad," she whispered, clutching my arm tightly. Before I could respond, a low, mournful howl echoed through the trees, sending shivers down my spine. The fire flickered erratically, casting long, dancing shadows that seemed to move of their own accord. Robert rose, his face stern but concerned. "Stay calm, Emily. It's just a wolf. We're safe here." But his words did little to quell the unease that settled over us. The howl repeated, closer this time, a haunting melody that resonated with an inexplicable sorrow. We huddled together, the warmth of the fire now a fragile shield against the growing darkness. As the night wore on, strange occurrences began to unfold. Footprints appeared around our campsite, too large to belong to any known animal. Yet no animal tracks followed them deeper into the woods. Objects moved on their own, gear misplaced, a kettle rattling on the stove without a gust of wind to explain it. Emily spoke of shadowy figures watching us from the trees, their eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. By the second night, the atmosphere had shifted. The once comforting sounds of the forest were replaced by eerie whispers that seemed to emanate from the very ground beneath us. Robert tried to maintain his composure, but the strain was evident in his eyes. "We need to leave," he said quietly one morning, the determination in his voice overshadowing the fear that flickered beneath. Packing up hastily, we prepared to trek back to civilization, the path back obscured by the relentless snowfall. The forest, which had once felt like a playground, now seemed like a labyrinth of shadows and whispers, each step forward a battle against the unseen forces that sought to keep us trapped. Halfway through our journey, disaster struck. A sudden blizzard descended, the wind howling with a ferocity that threatened to tear us from the earth. Visibility dropped to mere feet, the world around us swallowed by a blinding white fury. We struggled against the storm, our breaths visible in the freezing air, our progress slow and agonizing. In the chaos, Emily disappeared. One moment she was beside us, her hand entwined with mine. The next she was gone, swallowed by the tempest. Panic set in as we called her name, our voices lost in the howling wind. Robert and I searched frantically, our hearts pounding with fear, but there was no trace of her, no footprints, no signs of struggle, only the relentless storm and the haunting echoes of the whispers that seemed to mock our desperation. Days passed without a sign, the storm never abating, our hopes fading with each passing moment. Finally, exhausted and broken, we were forced to seek shelter in a makeshift cave, huddling together for warmth and comfort. The silence inside was deafening, the memories of Emily's laughter now a distant echo in the oppressive darkness. Weeks turned into months, and our disappearance became a haunting mystery, the whispers of our fate lingering in the minds of those who remembered the ill-fated trip. The forest, once a place of joy and exploration, became a symbol of loss and the unknown forces that dwell within its depths. Years later, I returned to the site, driven by a need for closure and haunted by the memories that refused to fade. The clearing where we had set up camp was now overgrown. The remnants of our time there hidden beneath layers of snow and decay. As I stood there, the same eerie stillness enveloped me, the whispers of the past echoing through the trees. I ventured into the woods, retracing our steps with a mix of fear and determination. The shadows seemed to shift and move, guiding me deeper into the heart of the forest. And then, in a clearing bathed in the pale light of a full moon, I saw her, Emily, her form ethereal and shimmering in the moonlight, her eyes filled with a sorrow that mirrored my own. "Michael," she whispered, her voice a haunting melody that resonated with the pain of our separation. "Help us." Tears streamed down my face as I reached out, but my hand passed through her ghostly form, the realization dawning that she was forever lost to the darkness that had consumed our family. The whispers grew louder, the shadows thickening around me, as if the forest itself was condemning me to relive the tragedy of that winter night. Desperation clawed at my mind as I struggled to understand the forces that had torn us apart. It was then that I saw him, a figure cloaked in shadows, his presence both menacing and sorrowful. "Leave now, or be consumed by the whispers," he warned, his voice a chilling echo that reverberated through the clearing. But I couldn't turn back. The need to honor my family's memory and uncover the truth drove me forward. Despite the fear that threatened to overwhelm me, "I won't leave until I find peace for us," I declared, my voice steady despite the turmoil within. The shadows swirled around me, the whispers growing into a cacophony of pain and rage. "Peace is not given, it is earned," the figure intoned, his eyes burning with an unnatural light. "You must confront the darkness within to set us free." Summoning every ounce of courage, I faced the figure, determined to break the cycle of loss and despair that had bound my family to the forest. "I will do whatever it takes," I vowed, my voice unwavering. In that moment, the oppressive darkness began to lift, the shadows receding as the whispers softened into a gentle lullaby. The figure smiled, a gesture of gratitude and relief, before fading into the night. Emily's form shimmered once more, her eyes now filled with peace as she nodded and dissolved into the moonlight. The forest fell silent, the whispers fading into the night as a sense of calm settled over the clearing. I felt a profound sense of closure, knowing that my family's spirits had finally found the peace they so desperately sought. As I made my way back through the woods, the oppressive presence lifted, replaced by the serene beauty of the winter landscape. Back in town, the mystery of the Jameson family's disappearance remained unsolved, but the whispers of our story lingered in the minds of those who knew us. The forest, once a place of joy and exploration, now stood as a solemn reminder of the darkness that dwells within, and the enduring power of love and remembrance to bridge the gap between the living and the departed. Years later, as I sit by the fireplace, the memories of that winter night still vivid in my mind, I find solace in knowing that we are no longer bound by the shadows that once consumed us. The whispers of the past have been silenced, their echoes transformed into a haunting lullaby that serves as a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the enduring bonds of family. And so, as winter blankets the landscape once more, I honor the memory of my family, ensuring that their stories remain alive in the silent whispers of the snow-covered woods, forever etched into the fabric of our lives.